Hello everybody, Corrine Smith here, responding to a tag created by Joe and Mary at BookBuds, and it's the library tag, revealing how booktubers use their local public libraries. I have included a link to the original video below. I also want to give a shout out to Kelly at Books I'm Not Reading, whose response to this tag required a great leap of faith on her part when she revealed the not so nice experience she had when she worked briefly at her local public library. I have given this advice to Kelly, and so I'll share it with you guys too. This comes from working in a variety of libraries over the course of 30 years. Outsiders may have an exalted view of libraries as being ultimately altruistic and fair, with high-minded ideas and terrific promotions and books and materials and on and on and on. And they must be the most amazing spaces to work in and to spend one's days. A dream devoutly to be wished. And it can be. And yet in the end, behind the scenes, behind the counter, a library is just another workplace. It's just another business with a range of employees who have a range of personalities, often very strong and opinionated personalities who are firmly entrenched and who are working together in close quarters. And it's not unusual for clashings to happen regularly, maybe even daily, until someone decides they've had enough and they leave. This may not apply to every library, of course, but it certainly does to some. I'm just saying. Library tag has 10 prompts, and I will add some of my own book recommendations at the end. Number 1, how often do you go to the library? Well, this number varies quite a bit depending on what subjects I'm researching or what videos I plan to record, what visual aids I will need, whether or not I'm going to write book reviews, or if I need to pick up or return books. So let's just say I go to the library a bunch of times a month. Some weeks it's more than once. Last week I think it was 2 or maybe 3, especially if you count middle of the night excursions to drop books into the outdoor return slot. Conveniently enough, I live within walking distance of our public library, so I get some exercise and I spend some lovely time outside going to and from the library. Number 2, do you belong to more than one library system? Not at the moment. I don't have to. I am fortunate enough to live in one of the largest and most robust library systems in the country. It covers the majority of the libraries found in central and western Massachusetts, and it is called C.W. Mars. At last count, it included the holdings of 187 libraries, totaling more than 8 million items, and I could not live without access to it. Period. I can get almost anything I want, either by waiting a few days or by driving to the place where it's kept. Period. A few years ago, when I took a class at a local state university, my college ID served as my library card, and then I could also tap into WorldCat and get almost anything on the planet, all for free. How wonderful. I may have to take classes there more often. Interlibrary loan should be considered to be the 8th wonder of the world. It is indispensable. And I am old enough to have witnessed its electronic transformation. You see, children, back in the 1990s and early 2000s, we librarians experienced what was then called retrospective conversion. Many librarians out there will remember this challenging and somewhat harrowing time. You sent your whole paper catalog to a company. And then some months later, they returned it along with digital records that they had completely transformed your catalog into digital records. Talk about a leap of faith. But of course, there were always glitches. We had to spend a lot of time cleaning up individual records. Maybe knowing what the work was that went into the process of creating present-day library catalogs makes them all that more miraculous to me. The conversion made it possible for individual libraries to share their catalogs electronically with other libraries and to form actual online systems. As a result, we have interlibrary loan, and it's an invaluable resource. If you are not participating in your local library system yet, go seek it out now. Seriously. Now that I think about it, I may still have an e-card from the Boston Public Library. Any resident of Massachusetts can apply online to get one. You don't have to go to Boston to get it, thank goodness. What the e-card gives you is access to all of the BPL's online databases, which are even more useful than the ones provided by the local libraries or by systems like CWMARS. I think you may have to renew the e-card every 2 years, and I'm not sure when I last logged in, so I may still have access to BPL. I'll have to check on that. Number 3, what percentage of books that you read come from the library? This number varies from month to month too, depending on what I'm doing. Maybe it's 50%, or as low as 20%, as high as 75%. It varies again depending on what I need the books for, whether or not I think I should own copies of them. Plus, right now, I have 3 stacks of to-be-read books perched on my nightstands. And there are 3 library books perched on top of them right now. Number 4, do you listen to audiobooks or get ebooks from the library, or are you hooked on a system like Audible or something else? Yes, I borrow CD sets from our library system on a regular basis. I started doing this a few years ago. I listen mostly to autobiographies and memoirs read by the person who wrote them. And I listen to them during my twice daily 38-mile commute to work. I have read a lot of books this way, and I did record a previous video where I recommended suitable biographies to listen to during your commute. I will put the link below. Number 5, did you go to story time at the library as a kid? No, not at all. We lived in suburbia, in a township just west of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It was a mix of 1950s housing developments and farmland. We didn't have our own town or village, so we did not have a library. We could have gone in to the city of Lancaster to go to the big public library there. It seemed as though it was really far away at the time, but it was really just 6 miles away. But when I was growing up in the 60s, we only had the one car for my parents and me. And my father took turns commuting to work with a neighbor who worked at the same place so that one of the wives could have the family car on the days off. And then my mother had just learned how to drive. Since she grew up in the city of Allentown, and she worked in the city of Philadelphia, she didn't need a car before. So she and I did sometimes take the bus into Lancaster, but we never went to the library. We bought books at some of the big department stores there that Lancaster had at the time and doesn't anymore. And they were really just steps away from the library. I don't know why we didn't go. I don't think I used Lancaster Public Library until I was in high school and I had to do a report on something. So I don't know if they even offered story time, and I don't think I've ever stepped into their children's department. Sorry, Lancaster. As a result, I relied solely on our elementary school library and on our elementary school librarian, Mrs. Moomaw, for books. Well, by the time I was in 4th grade, I had decided that I wanted to be a librarian myself when I grew up. So thank you again, Joyce Moomaw, thank you, at Farmdale Elementary, for setting a good example for me. I have mentioned before, too, that we were also able to order books from the Scholastic Book Program, maybe every month in elementary school. The teachers distributed little paper catalogs printed in color, which was cool, and we could order and pay for our own books, and then we got them a few weeks later. They were all paperbacks, and I ordered a lot of books this way and paid for them out of my allowance. I think the only one that I have left now is a Winnie the Pooh book. And I can't find it in my library at the moment. Hope I didn't give it away. I don't know why I would have given it away. Anyway, Mrs. Mumal, Farmdale Elementary Library, and the Scholastic Book Program. Those were my book sources as a kid, not the public library. Number 6. Have you ever borrowed a movie or video game from your library? Yes, I borrow movies on DVD from the library system. Sometimes as many as one a month, sometimes one every other month. I don't keep track. I don't subscribe to any streaming services for movies. I don't have cable, so I rely on my own old stash of VHS tapes and library DVDs to meet my movie needs. Number 7. Have you ever gotten fined for returning books late? If so, how do you feel about that? Well, yeah, of course. Of course I've gotten fined for overdue books. Are you kidding me? Yes, I paid them all. I was happy to pay them all and to support whatever library I had abused. During and since the pandemic, though, I think all of our libraries in the system have stopped charging fines. They've suspended that program. I would pay them if they still did it, because I do still accrue overdue books, because I often keep books until they're late, because sometimes the timing's not right on recording one of these videos when I'm gathering all the materials, and sometimes I'm waiting for the books that I need to record. So thank you again, CW Mars System and CW Mars Libraries. I'm taking this opportunity to tell the world about your good work. Number 8. Do you attend special events, groups, or book sales at the library? Yes. I go to some programs, not just from our library, but some of the other libraries in our region. And there are some book sales I just cannot miss. In fact, I hit a really good one last week, spent $20 on books and CDs. Number 9. Have you ever given or taken a book from a little free library, a book box, or a book swap? Yes. I have both taken and given 1 or 2 books from a little free library. The thing is, my paths do not usually intersect with any local little free libraries, so I don't make it a regular habit. I could probably start to make it a regular habit with the one that is standing in a cemetery next to our reservoir. We'll see. When I see it, I always forget it's there, and then when I see it, I'm like, oh yeah, what's in there again? So I've never given. I feel obligated to have something to give first before I take. So I may have to look into that. Number 10 is a bonus question. Does your librarian know you by name? Yes. One of the librarians in our local library always says hello to me by name, and for the longest time, I did not know her name in return. And, you know, it eventually reaches a point where you're embarrassed and you can't even ask anymore. So one day, a couple of weeks ago, she was in the room, said hi to me, and then she left, and I asked one of the other librarians what her name was. So now I know. So, Judy, if you're watching, yes, I know your name. And naturally, if I happen to sneak into one of the libraries that I used to work in, it's a possibility that someone there will recognize me and will know my name. Now, extra from me, I have some book recommendations for you. The original tag didn't include recommendations, but I'm adding them. If you are at all interested in how libraries operate, or if you have ever worked in one, then you may want to read or listen to The Library Book by Susan Orlean. Susan tells the story of the big city Los Angeles Public Library and what happened when it suffered a major fire in 1986, when 400,000 books were lost and 700,000 more were damaged. Those of us who don't live on the West Coast may not have even heard about this tragedy, and the authorities are still not sure whether the fire was set deliberately or not. So Susan investigates the fire, but she also does a great deal of reporting on the library in detail. She was not a librarian. She didn't know how libraries operated, and so she learned, and you can learn along with her. She talks about the library and its an important role in its community. It's very interesting, the library book. And then, of course, I like reading good mysteries, especially if they involve books or libraries or librarians. And my very favorite of this genre is the Miss Zookas series. I did record a video featuring 7 mystery series featuring librarians. The link is below. Okay, so my favorites are the Miss Zookas Mysteries by Joe Doreski. Here is an example culled from our library shelves. Thank you again, local library. Here you are taken to the fictional town of Belhaven, Washington, where Miss Helma Zookas is an old-style reference librarian who sometimes is called upon to help Police Chief Wayne Galat solve some murders in the area. She helps him with his investigations, or at least that's her intention. She's an old school librarian in a new world for libraries. These are fun and funny. Yes, and I will put a link to that other video below about the mystery series featuring librarians. There are more than the ones that I featured in that video, but those ones will get you started. So there you go, folks. You have my answers to the library tag. Thanks to Joe and Mary at BookBuds for launching it. And thanks again to Kelly at Books I'm Not Reading. I'm Corinne Smith. Thanks for watching. Now, I've got to head out the door and return these 2 guys to the library. See ya.